Udeti bhavato vishwam. Udeti bhavato vishwam varidheriva budbudah iti gyattvai ekatma atmanam evam evalayam brajya. Simple translation is that the universe rises from you, and that you is real self. The universe rises from you, the real self. How it rises? Very good. So it says, this next verse is in the chapter number 5 of Astavakra Gita. Now, the master points out there are 4 different ways to reach the real self. So in this verse, first let me translate this verse. It says the universe rises from you. That you is real self. It is consciousness. Rises from you, the real self. How it rises? Like bubbles rising from the sea. Thus, so when it rises, so it has to fall down. So it rises like the bubbles rising from the sea. Thus know the real self to be one, and in this way you enter into the highest state of meditation. We have been understanding as a seeker that this real self is pure consciousness. It is self-existent, it is self-evident, and it is self-luminous. Means what? Self-evident. It knows itself by itself. Self-luminous. It has the absolute knowledge in itself. And self-existent. It is independent. It is independent of anything. Body depends on these chemicals, carbs, protein. Breathing depends on the air. But there is no dependency of this real self. That is why it is pure consciousness. What we need? We need an understanding, knowledge, clarity. What is the clarity? Simple way. I am not the body. No, then when I will die, I will know I am not the body. How you know that when you die? Body is already separated at the time of the death, but we do not exist, we are not aware, so separation does not mean anything. So what the master is saying, that there is a delusion in the intellect that the body and the real self are one. When we remove that delusion in the intellect, then what happens? That process is known as discernment. The problem is in the intellect. Problem is in the mind. By doing headstand posture, nothing is going to happen. The delusion will remain there. That we need to understood. Now see another way to understand. When I see you, I experience you. Clear? You are an object of experience. I am an experiencer. And there is an experience between you and me. This is the work of the mind. Mind divides and perceives. That is the greatest impurity of the mind. Now, when you replace or by meditation, the mind is replaced by real self, pure consciousness that does not divide experience, experiencer, and experienced. I think you are getting it now. You all are seekers. Astavakra Gita talks of the highest principles. There is no three entities. No experiencer, no experienced, and no object of experience. I experience waves in the forms. Are waves in the forms different from the water? Answer is no. There is only one entity. Go little deeper. Is ocean different from the water? If the water is not there, the ocean does not exist. So can I say that from the water, ocean rises, the wave rises, and the foam rises? This is how the logic is given to help us to remove the delusion from the mind. Terry, we need only an understanding. When you remove that delusion in the intellect, what happens? This mind is purified, and this mind reflects only the real self, one pure consciousness, that duality, that trinity, that you and me are different. How can you say you and me are different? At the physical level. But at the level of the consciousness, that difference does not exist. What we will get, go on differentiating. I and Jerry are different, I and David are different, go on differentiating. What you will get? Ask yourself. We don't get anything. I'm not talking of the science. Science, when we say that A is a process of reductionism, Eastern wisdom is a science of unification, knowing that one reality. So this is one way that you are contemplating and reflecting every time with your every experience, interacting with the world, and ultimately the intellect leads you to the separation that the body and the real self are separate. And once that separation is removed, caused by the delusion, we live, we think, we act in meditation. That is why it is known as meditation is effortless, natural. Remember, don't forget, in the first chapter, the seeker is asked the three questions. Do you remember the three questions? Knowledge of the real self, not of others. Dispassion is another requirement. So dispassion and the knowledge of the real self. We study, Eastern wisdom like a fiction. It fascinates me. There is only one reality, like a fiction, like an actor in a movie. We appreciate and we forget it. Why? The mind in delusion says that is not practical. What is practical is causing me suffering. That is very much practical in my life. Do you see the argument our masters have given? So you see that in the first chapter we understand the power of dispassion, power of knowledge of the real self. We don't know. Fact is that the way we have been conditioned by the society, by the culture, by the family, by the science and the world, it's almost a cultural hypnosis. When you ask, oh, do you have a stress? Who doesn't have a stress in the world? Come on, what you are talking? Who doesn't have a stress? You have become a great philosopher to dig deep into the stress. Natural question comes, don't tell me nobody lives in the stress. It means I know that everybody is living in the stress, so I am also. So that lack of understanding is given by the principles of the Eastern wisdom, but we can understand these knowledge only when we have a power of discernment and dispassion. And after that, the master in the first chapter explained, you can summarize that real self is pure consciousness. That pure consciousness is self-evident. You have to dig inside your intellect. You need not to practice asanas, pranayama and other stuff, mantras. You have to dig. Where the illusion lies in the intellect. So I have to think. I have to become a thinker. So you find that real self, you have to understand. It is self-evident, it is self-luminous, and it is self-existent. So the second chapter, the seeker explains, listening to you, I have reached that. But the master doesn't believe that. In order to check in the third chapter, the master says, how you say you are awakened, you are in peace and freedom. He raised the doubt in the mind of a seeker. Why he raises the doubt? So that the mind, to check if the mind is 100% pure, receive the knowledge as it is, reach to the state of meditation. One example, you can see that what happens when I changed, when I am settled in meditation, my perception of the world changed. Honey, you are responsible, mind. Now your perceptions changed. You know what perception has changed. Now it is the real self perceiving the real self. It is very much practical. It is here and now. This is what Master explained in the third chapter. In the fourth chapter, seeker says yes. Seeker presents his perception has changed. His knowledge has changed. He is experiencing the state from moment to moment. And then we come to the fifth chapter. In the fifth chapter, we have 4 different methods, very higher methods of, so to say, the meditation. So Master confirms this is the last week I have understood the complete dispassion helps you to live in meditation 24/7. Complete dispassion. Complete dispassion. That includes a lot of stuff. The duality, likes and dislikes, pain and pleasure, blame, complaint, reaction, game coming from the mind is over now. It does not happen in your mind. So that mind is pure and it reflects the state of dispassion. We have already covered on Mondays and Thursdays. So now the master is saying there is another method. Can you perceive? Take one example. We all use smartphone, but and so there are two types of people. The one person uses the smartphone like us, the entire group that I'm talking to you, including me. The other guy who is an expert, who knows deep inside how the smartphone works, what is the chip, what is the motherboard, how the call is made, what happens, what are the changes that takes place. But from outside, both are using the smartphone. One knows inside, one does not know inside. So when you know inside, your perception changes. For all practical purposes, the smartphone for an expert who knows inside is purely an instrument, and we get attached to it. So when we have a surface understanding, then there is a normal tendency of the mind that it gets attached. Why are you sad to me like this? Normally, especially in India, it happens. The wife says to the husband, you criticized my mother 10 years ago. I still have those feeling inside me. Where they are inside me, I don't know, but I keep on repeating. So what he says, Udeti bhavato vishwam varidheva buddha. So now he has given an example, because real self is purely subjective. You cannot see through the sense organ and the mind. So that is why we have to give similes, metaphors, an example to make us understand. Wave. We say wave is an essence. We say you are real, so you are a wave. You remove the consciousness, wave is gone. So wave is an essence felt by the mind in delusion. You remove water, no ocean, no foam, no wave. Same thing. Remove the consciousness, not individual body. Breath, mind, intellect, thought, egoism, enjoyer, doer, repetition, recognition, nothing is there. If you remove that consciousness is taken as water. Water. We are pure consciousness. It is real self and Satchidananda. Waves without water, or water without waves. Which one is true? Waves without water does not exist at all. Constantly you reflect during the day. The body cannot exist without the consciousness. Waves do not exist without the water. I exist because of consciousness, not because of honey, son, daughter, reputation, recognition, wealth, body, breath, mind, intellect, ego. They all are bubbles in the same consciousness. The highest teaching in Eastern wisdom. They all are bubbles. They rise and they fall. So when we have that clarity in the intellect and you maintain awareness, you are living in meditations. All our confusions are gone. You will say, I gave birth, I know I will be born as a human being. No chance. when that experience takes place, it takes place in empty mind. You see, Buddha says emptiness, nothingness. Again, go back. So that empty mind lives in the state of dispassion. Empty mind does not mean that you don't have a thought. If you don't have a thought, the mind is not there. Thought is mind, mind is thought. But clinging is not there. That passion is not there. That likes and dislike is not there. That pain and the pleasure experienced by the mind is not taken as I. That is the meaning of the empty mind. So that state of meditation takes place in the empty mind, which is pure, and in the intellect, which lives in the highest level of, go back to the first chapter, the dispassion. That is why this book starts with the 3 questions. Udeti bhavato vishwam varidhe budbuddha. He simply says, just knowing with the clarity that this matter and the consciousness has an unholy wedlock. Sometimes we use the unholy wedlock. How can the matter and the consciousness go together? How can I say that this body is consciousness and consciousness is the body? I can say car belongs to me, but I do not belong to car. That is why we change car. Do you see that? House belongs to me, but I do not belong to the house. I am independent. And that I is the real self. Are you getting it? You have to contemplate. Car belongs to me, but I do not belong to it. Smartphone belongs to me, but I do not belong to the smartphone. I can change the phone. Can smartphone change me? Can car change me? It's a pure aware. Can I live into that awareness? So I break the unholy wedlock between the matter and the consciousness. So when you break the unholy wedlock, what is that state? That state is dispassion. That is how we understand. Here and now. Not in future. No, I will think after the session is over. This master says meditation is here and now or never. Body exists because of me. And that me is I am. That I am is real self. Mind exists because I am. And that I am is real self. First understanding. And second understanding, this body, breath, mind, intellect, ego, all the thoughts are like bubbles. Rise and fall in the consciousness. Are you getting it? Rise and fall in that consciousness. We identify ourselves through the body. I have a reputation, I have a wealth, I have a house. That is why I exist. See the wrong notion. And once we have that understanding, that in the state of the dispassion, it leads you to that higher level of awareness, where we separate, where we feel, we see the separate. It is already separate. But because of the illusion, we find that they are having an unholy wedlock between the matter and the consciousness. So here what says our master, that is another beautiful understanding, that this body, breath, mind, intellect, ego, they all belongs to one set of existence, and that is matter. It is purely material matter. And the one consciousness is there that is pervading in all beings. It is one reality, that is real self. So when we understand in the highest state of dispassion and discernment, we live into that awareness. One of the great masters, J. Krishnamurti, says it is a choiceless awareness. It is awareness where there is no choice. So he is referring, in consciousness there is no choice. In I am there is no choice. In mind we have a choice. And that choice creates a duality. That choice says, you are there, I am here. For the matter of convenience, living my worldly life, it is okay, you are there and I am there. But deeper inside, do I live with that real self all the time? Yes. Then what happens? I say, you are here, so I am playing my role. So it becomes a play and a fun outside. Whether there is a pain, whether there is a suffering, whether there is an attachment, all are play and the fun. Why they are play and fun? Go back to the same principle again. They are the bubbles rising in an ocean and fall down. They are the bubbles. The last part, again you may become aware. The moment you raise your hand, okay, I raise my hand. I have given that example hundreds of times. So just start asking through the intellect, but I know you right hand. So does the right hand also says that I know you? That is the proof that this body is matter. Body right hand cannot say, I know you also. So what is the properties of being inert? Inert does not know itself, it does not know anything. It does not know others. I know myself. Why? Consciousness. If I am not conscious, I cannot know. Go back. I repeat it. You have to repeat in your mind again and again. Do I love happiness? Yes. Happiness is my nature. Now start exploring in the field of awareness, in the state of dispassion, and you are there. What a beautiful way to express by this master. So let us start our journey. Eyes are closed. Body is comfortable. Mind is looking inside. Can we translate this verse into the practice? Even though we are not doing any practice. That's why sometimes I say it is a non-practice. Now, can you really see when I said steady body is one bubble, mind looking inside is another bubble. When I said close your eyes, another bubble. We only need awareness, my friends. I can even say self-awareness. I said you that the body is steady. Let the body jump and here and there, but it is not possible in the beginning to maintain awareness when the body is jumping, moving. Because too much attachment, passion is there. Unholy wedlock is there. That is the reason we say steady body. Mind is looking within. What you will get mind looking outside the world? We differentiate. Who differentiates and divides? Ego in the mind. So I am not exploring and doing a research in modern science. They divide and perceive. Otherwise, science is not possible. Eastern wisdom is possible only to find oneness. It is the science of oneness. And that is why we go for another layer of understanding, being comfortable. Now see in the light of the verse, first we go as usual, look at the neck joint. Be there, it is an object. Object of my knowledge, object of my experience. Can you become aware? It is the mind that is doing this business. So you have to simply aware. You need not to fight. Neck joint, object of knowledge. It is seen, it is known. That is why I experience whatever I experience. And who is the experiencer? Is the mind. Oh. I experience sensation, comfort, and steadiness. You can say, because you all are seekers, that is a lower level of the practice. We enjoy that. So sensation, comfort, steadiness. What is after that? What is after three bubbles? Is the space. Can I say space is awareness and awareness is space? Do you see any object in that infinite space? No. So that infinite space, when I say I am aware, I am the space and the space is awareness. You see, just by one point starting from the neck joint can lead you to the same experience. We are not doing anything. Still, let us play with it, play with the shoulder joints. Be there, feel. So when I say feel is an experience, comes from the mind, are you aware? Sensation, comfort, and stillness, steadiness, yes, it comes from the mind still. But now space. Here the mind has no option but to drop its nature to divide and perceive. Why? Only one space. So mind has nothing to divide. That is why I say space is awareness and awareness is space. So what happens? The mind still plays the trick here in delusion, not in dispassion. Mind says, okay, the space is an object, infinite space that dissolves being an object. Only awareness is left. And that awareness, we are aware. Can I say awareness of awareness? What a it is there. We are discovering what is already within us. Science discovers what is not within us. The entire body, all the joints. The mind may pick up any joint, let it pick up. Be there. And when you are there, yes, pass through that experience. No problem, sensation. Being comfortable and steadiness. So you see that we understood in the very beginning, we need not to physically separate body from the consciousness or the real self. Problem lies in the intellect or in the mind, in the form of a delusion, in the form of an unholy wedlock. Matter and consciousness cannot unite. So sensation, comfort, and steadiness. After that, there is a space. Now ask the mind, what is after the space? It is awareness. Do you see that clearly here and now? Oh, there is a foam, there is a wave, then there is an ocean, and what is after that? There is a water. What is after that? Water. What is after that? Water. Yes, I see body appears in the mind. Sensation, comfort, and steadiness also appears as an experience in the mind. No issue. What is after that? The space. Okay, and what is after the space? We are alive. We are conscious human being. What is after the space? It is an awareness. And what is after awareness? It is awareness. This is what the Master is explaining in this verse. So if there is nothing after that awareness, it is the consciousness, is the ultimate reality. And what about others? The body, breath, mind, intellect, ego. Bubbles. They come, they go. They rise and they fall. Well, what happens? What prevents this experience? You can say maybe the thoughts interrupt, the influx of the thoughts. Examine. Reflect. Where the thought appears. Where my house appears. Did you get a clue? It appears in this space. How do I know that there are many thoughts? It means all the thoughts are separate, one after the other. That's how I know. That's how I know that there are many thoughts. what I'm saying? I believe you got it. Thought is there. One thought I recognize. After that, there is an interval. Second thought. That's how I recognize I have two thoughts. But what is that interval? That interval is the space. What is after the space? Awareness. What is after awareness is awareness. Why this passion is required? One thought comes, I get attached to it, and I say a lot of thoughts are coming. Then I cannot see the space. I cannot see what is behind the thought, where the thought exists. Thought is nothing but the mind. Take it. Mind is thought, thoughts are mind. But this mind exists, appears like a wave in the water. Appears like a wave on the real self. It rises from the real self and it dissolves into the real self. Can I see that clearly? Can I see that clearly? Another point to be worth understanding. You are there, what is behind the space awareness, and what is behind awareness is awareness. Now, because of lack of this passion, means what? The mind lives with the past impressions, past, present, and future. The mind lives in the time and the space. So it triggers a thought. Then it triggers, oh, let me do something. And then one wave gives rise to many waves. We fall trap, unholy wedlock. Don't we clearly understand? Wave does not exist. It appears to exist. It rises from the water and it falls into the water. Am I aware of that fact? With reference to any thoughts, the rising, falling, rising, dissolving. One way to see it. Other way, where the thought occurs. In the space. All the thought appears in the space. Yes. All the wave occurs in the water. You see, when we compare with the simile, oh, what a crazy mind you are saying. Why you see all the thoughts appear? Why all the waves appear? Obviously, so when we are aware of that, we have already separated. Why we have separated? We understand it is already separate. Another way to live into the state of dispassion, that awareness never goes anywhere. It is independent. The rest are dependent. Mind, thoughts, breath, body, words. Beautiful. We're not doing anything. What the water has to do with the waves? The water has to fight with the waves or the storm? No. Do you see that? When we see that clearly, seeing is awareness. So because our mind poses lot of challenges, we say, okay, dispassion. Otherwise, simple, I won't say tool, because then we feel as if we are practicing. We are seeing that the birds flying, we get engaged with the birds, but we don't see where they are flying. They are flying in the sky. If the sky doesn't exist, forget about these birds. Do you see that? Forget about these thoughts. If the space is not there, and behind that space awareness is not there, who makes me aware of the thought? If I don't have consciousness, how can I know that I have one thought or many thoughts? Do you see that? See that clearly. So what mind will do? When I live in awareness, all the thoughts are rising and falling. I have to do nothing with it. And when and that is a permanent state. Remember this. What is that permanent? Awareness. Oh. Where one thought rises, other thought passes. How can I say that thought is permanent? Yes. So what happens? Udeti bhavatu vishwam varidhe riva budbuddha. Budbuddha bubbles. We're not talking of any visualization or imagination. We are seeing the fact. Remove the consciousness. Where are the thoughts? So we use the incoming and outgoing thoughts to reach to the real self. Birds without space cannot exist. Space remains, birds comes and goes, body comes and goes, thought comes and goes, mind comes and goes, breath is coming and going. Tell me anything that mind knows is independent, is steady. That is why I say it is the when you are there, the stillness of that real self reflects in the body. That keeps your body steady. You need not to make any effort. What a only one thing. We are aware of the birds? No, yes, good. Become aware. Where is the container? Container is this space. Body? No problem. Container. Breath? Container. Thoughts? Container. Only one container. That is another way to see it. You are seeing. Seeing means you are aware. Aware means you know it. Awareness, knowledge, experience, perception. They are used differently but convey the same. The time comes we are settled in the consciousness of the real self. And then what? We continue to live. We continue to think and act in the world. We picked up only so-called two steps, being comfortable and being carefree. See that? And they both are non-practice, passive steps. We need an awareness. So, my nature of the mind is to jump from one thing to the other. It will continue to jump and trigger until we realize the real self. Once it is done, then you will say this mind is simply doing a play and a fun. Awareness. Space, awareness. What is behind that awareness? What is behind that awareness is awareness. And what is that isness? It is existence. Well, take up that. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Bring your awareness on the right hand, your awareness on the left hand. Lift your both the palms, place it on your eyes, open the eyes inside. Know your experiences. Bring the hands down. Now we'll share our experiences. How are you, David and Jerry?
Very deep today, very quiet. I was surfing on the edge of space and beyond the whole time.
That's good.
That was a very interesting experience, but very heavy at the end. Felt like I was falling over.
Beautiful. That is beautiful. You know, to explore what is beyond the space, there is an awareness, and what is behind that awareness is awareness. What is behind that? It is awareness. Now go back and explain what is this is. It is isness. It is existence. And we are there. How are you, Jerry?
So I'm good. It was quiet. It went by fast. I think that I'm very aware of the place that doesn't change, and everything else is constantly changing.
Every else is constantly changing. That's good. Two things. That's a beautiful way to put it. How are you, Stephen?
I'm good. My meditation was an application of contemplation, reflection, dispassion. I'm as I explained, I think on Thursday, I'm in a new environment with a lot of stuff going on around me, and it was those moments of, I think on Thursday I was able to describe each and every one of those distractions, where today I knew the distractions existed, but I can't tell you what they actually were. So as I recognized that and I'd gone through that contemplation and reflection of it, I started realizing the lesson of I'm becoming aware of my awareness, and then being able to be dispassionate about it. And as I progressed through that thinking, I noticed myself settling more into my heart center, and that space started to expand as the meditation went on.
Beautiful, beautiful. That this is another beautiful way of putting constant contemplation, reflection, and leading to awareness. So when I should do contemplation, the moment you wake up, until you retire to the bed. So when you contemplate and reflect, you are putting a pressure on the intellect to remove the ignorance. That is one way. The other way, as David and Jerry explained, I'm looking for what is beyond the space. That also leads to the same. You see that different approaches. Very good. How are you, Brandy? Jerry is totally still. But where is the smile? Yes, Brandy. Yeah.
My experience was similar to Stephen's in that I was pretty contemplative, except that it was different in the way that I realized when I got into the space and I was perceiving from the awareness that my dispassion didn't really need to happen with my mind. It needed to happen with my emotions. And that wasn't something that you listed, So I was like, where's the thing in the space that I need to detach from? And it was, I think, my understanding is that emotions happen in the body. So it was like, it wasn't my body, but it was like my emotions in the body. And it was just pretty, once I realized that there wasn't any like big revelation, it was just pretty steady. Like, okay, separate, right?
Separate, yes. That's another way.
And, yeah.
Beautiful, Brandy. That's another way. Emotion, whether it appears in the mind, I'm not the mind. Whether it appears in the body, I'm not the body. I'm not the body. I'm not even the thought. Without the thought, there is no emotion. I am stressed, then I have one emotion. I am happy, then there is another emotion. So every thought contains that emotion in the form of ignorance. Dispassion is required. Beautiful. How are you, Terry?
I cannot hardly even say. I was very far into something. I don't know where. Kind of floated on the edge of being conscious of the space and being conscious of what you were saying, and then I would just go. I don't know if I went to sleep or if I went somewhere else. And then I would come back, and I didn't even really know where I was. So
one thing was sure, that the world outside disappeared. That is what we need, but in the field of awareness, so that we know the bubbles rising and falling. And it is happening. It is happening. Beautiful. How are you, Vaibhav? Then we'll go to Christina and Ashok. Yes.
So my experience was like that. I can see that some thought is coming into my mind, but now I am not talking back to that thought. So it stays for a while, it goes away, then there's a blankness, then something else comes, it gives me some experience, again I'm not talking back, so it goes away. Then it makes me calm that I know that it will go away, so it makes me more confident that I can stay in here, in this state.
Beautiful. I want to add something. You see, I am stressed. Is it a thought or not? Can I become aware of this thought rising from the mind? The moment I become aware of this thought rising from the mind, not rising from me, separation, dispassion. And when that state of dispassion takes place, you go into a very deeper state of calmness and peace. So when Terry, your mind says, I have this problem, become aware of that thought to separate and enter into dispassion. I can tell you the body will stop moving. Body has no way to move. We will do that. We are going there. So, how are you, Christina?
That was a wonderful practice. Thank you for the quiet practice. It was, I feel like we all have been sharing experiences that trickle down to something that I was trying to comprehend. So if I can explain real quick, I love that you explained the bubbles. So the bubbles can be in containers of excitement or anxiety. So they could be, the good and the bad. And in the meditation, I was able to become to a space of awareness that I saw the space breathing. So I knew that it was with my breath. So that was,
Yes.
exciting, but I couldn't get attached.
Yes,
But within that space, I then felt maybe some containers opening of bubbles of an anxiety of a thought. And, we're not supposed to close those containers. We let the bubbles rise. And I just noticed it, and I didn't become passionate with it, and then it fell. So I got it.
Thought of an anxiety, beautiful. Thought of an anxiety is one bubble. Experience of that anxiety is another bubble. You are none of them. Have you ever experienced anxiety in your life? No. Because they are bubbles. How are you, Ashok?
Namaste, sir.
Namaste, sir.
All good. And today I was very watchful about the thoughts. They are coming and going. And it was a nice experience. Thank you.
Beautiful. I'm happy that each one is understanding. Sam is in deeper state. Kautilya has joined. He sent me and he perhaps WhatsApp messaged it at the last moment. So if I have already put you an email list, so if you want to attend, you can join next week at the same time. Understanding. Last point, bubbles. Body is a bubble. All the experiences in the body is a bubble. Mind itself is a big bubble. And then there are bubbles of the thoughts and feeling and the sensations. They all rise and fall into one existence, that is consciousness. And that is me. And if that is me, we are already there. That is all for today. Thank you very much. We'll meet next Saturday at the same time.
Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you.